Good morning. Here's what you need to know. Nayant Win European press photo agency Aung San Suu Kyi, Myanmar's leader, visited Rakhine State for the first time since the country's military unleashed a campaign of violence against Rohingya Muslims 2 months ago, driving hundreds of thousands into Bangladesh. She showed little sign of acknowledging ethnic cleansing, as critics have urged. "I hope everything will go fine as local villages handle the rebuilding process," she said in one village. "We all have to try our best to peacefully, Saeed Khan Agence France Presse, Getty Images. Conditions are deteriorating for more than 600 men barricaded inside Australia's no-closed Manus Island detention centre in Papua New Guinea. The UN warned of an unfolding humanitarian emergency. Here's an explainer on the crisis. The standoff has drawn harsh scrutiny to Australia's treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. The Hollywood star Russell Crowe, who grew up in Australia, called it a national shame, and offered to take in 6 of the men himself. Who else? He tweeted. This week's Australia letter explores what we see and what we miss when we discuss refugees all over the world. Doug Milster. New York Times. President Trump confronts newly empowered leaders in Japan and China on his 12-day tour of Asia. He arrives in Tokyo on Sunday. Mr. Trump, above at a cabinet meeting this week, backed off his threat to send the suspect in the terrorist attack in New York this week to the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. But he called for the death penalty, and said the terrorism trial system, known for swift, severe action, was a joke. Prosecutors said the suspect plotted the attack for months, timed it to take the maximum number of and even did a test run. Al Drago. For the New York Times. Republican lawmakers unveiled the most sweeping rewrite of the U.S. tax code in decades, tilting the country toward a tax system long championed by businesses. We're assessing how the plan would affect the U.S. economy, but changes in mortgage deductions infuriated home builders. A trade spokesman said, "They are picking rich Americans and corporations over small businesses and the middle class." Darren Staples. Reuters. The fallout from sexual harassment revelations continues. Gavin Williamson, above, was named Britain's defense secretary, after his predecessor, Michael Fallon, resigned. Brett Ratner, a prominent Hollywood producer and director, is facing allegations of harassment and assault. A former contestant on The Apprentice is suing President Trump for defamation for insults after she accused him of unwanted advances. And the top news editor of National Public Radio in the U.S., Michael Oreskes, resigned after being accused there, shortly after accusations surfaced related to his past tenure at the Times. Jun Hyun European press photo agency. Koreans are known to be last-minute buyers. That's one of the well-worn explanations for why ticket sales for the Winter Games in Pyeongchang, South Korea, are grim. Only 341,327 of 1.07 million tickets had been sold. The poor sales revived questions about the organizing committee's promotional efforts, if political turmoil and tensions with North Korea were dampening interest, and whether South Koreans even care much about winter sports. But at least the Olympic outfits seem to be rolling out on time. Business. Kim Kyung-hoon. Reuters. Alibaba's quarterly results brought great news for the company. Profit more than doubled as revenue jumped 61% compared to Amazon's 34% rise. And bad news, all its businesses apart from online shopping lost money. Li Ka-shing, the Hong Kong billionaire, sold his tallest building for $5.2 billion to a group of Hong Kong investors and buyers from China in what some news outlets are calling the priciest real estate deal ever. Jerome Powell, President Trump's nominee to head the Federal Reserve, is expected to stay the course on monetary policy. The investor Robert Mercer is retreating from the helm to the research arm of his $50 billion hedge fund, Renaissance Technologies. The abduction of a Vietnamese businessman in Berlin could complicate a trade deal between Vietnam and the EU. The Bank of England raised its main interest rate for the first time in a decade. U.S. stocks were mixed. Here's a snapshot of global markets. In the news, Adi Weda European press photo agency. Jakarta's new governor, Anies Baswedan, kept a campaign promise to Islamist groups, closing a hotel resort linked to high-end prostitution. Above, he celebrated his election. Asian correspondent. In India, the death toll rose to 29 from the explosion of a boiler at a state-run power plant in Uttar Pradesh. Politicians descended on the site and demanded investigations. The New Indian Express, a study commissioned by Uber, calculated the amount of time the average car owner in Jakarta spends stuck in traffic or looking for parking 22 days a year. Coconuts. A Chinese millionaire paid a record $10,000 for a dram, basically a single shot, of 1878 Macallan Single Malt Scotch. The booze, tests proved, was fake. BBC Smarter Living Tips, both new and old, for a more fulfilling life. Heidi Younger. It's possible to end your frustration and fulfill your dreams. Start by focusing on what you want, not just what you want to escape. Think twice if your doctor suggests using a stent to deal with cardiac pain. Recipe of the day: double down on flavor with salmon in anchovy garlic butter sauce. Noteworthy: Julia Marchi for the New York Times. By the accident of timing, a new film festival has become an early test of what is acceptable in the new era declared by President Xi Jinping of China. A species of sea slug engages in what researchers call kleptopredation, preying on creatures that have just eaten. The strategy could reshape the understanding of food chains. The Turkish Open golf tournament runs through the weekend. We look at how it came to be. The Great Pyramid in Egypt was examined using technology borrowed from particle physics, revealing an unexpected 100-foot-long void inside. Backstory: Sandora via European press photo agency. Clocks fall back an hour in the US and Canada on Sunday, after having done so last week in Europe, with the end of daylight saving time. Clocks in parts of Australia have moved, too, in the opposite direction. The reason for the shift is contentious and confusing. It isn't for farmers, as you may have learned in school. Historians have traced the notion for daylight saving time to Benjamin Franklin, who realized he was sleeping through some daylight hours while visiting Paris in the 18th century. But the first idea to actually move the clock hands came from William Willett, who unsuccessfully proposed daylight saving time to the British Parliament in 1908. Germany, seeking cost savings during World War I, heard the idea and enacted it in 1915. 3 weeks later, the British followed, and other world powers were close behind, including the US in 1918. Despite the common belief that US farmers supported the change, they were actually the strongest lobby against the change because it disrupted their schedules, said David Prerau, the author of Seize the Daylight. I don't know how that ever became a myth, but it is the exact opposite, he said. You can find out more about daylight saving time here. Daniel Victor contributed reporting, __________. Your morning briefing is published weekday mornings and updated online. Browse past briefings here. We have briefings timed for the Australian, Asian, European and American mornings. And our Australia bureau chief offers a weekly letter adding analysis and conversations with readers. You can sign up for these and other Times newsletters here. What would you like to see here? Contact us at asiabriefing@knighttimes.com.